Acharya ji Pranam. On listening to Lao Tzu saying, within quotes, by his non-action the sage governs all, Raman Maharishi remarked, non-action is unceasing activity. The sage is characterized by eternal and intense activity. Then comes the question, what is the importance and meaning of hard work in spirituality? With age, I find myself not only lacking in motivation, but also the capacity to work hard or indulge in any intense activity. Can the capacity to work hard be developed in older age? Does it matter in spiritual process? Oh no. What is being said and what sense you are making of it? Nobody is asking you to work hard. Please appreciate what is being said. Lao Tzu is saying, by his non-action the sage governs all. The Maharishi elucidates it by saying non-action is unceasing activity, the sage is characterized by eternal and intense activity. We are talking here of the two dimensions and the healthy relationship between them. There is the dimension of the center, the heart, the true self, the truth or Atma. There is no question of any activity because the center does not move. And that is the point of non-action. Nothing happens there. Atma is akarta, non-doer. Then, by virtue of the Atma or the truth or the non-doer, there is the total expanse of Prakriti in which motion, activity are constantly happening, because the expanse by the definition is time and space. You cannot have space without activity. Please consider what I am saying. You cannot have time without activity. You cannot have space without time. And you cannot have time without space. Both of these imply change. Both of these imply existence. And change is action. Time is action. Space is action. Existence is action. Change is action. In the sage, this expanse holds no pretense of being the doer. The expanse does without feeling as the doer. What is the name of this expanse? The sage himself. So a lot of activity happens without the presence of any false actor. Why does this activity happen at all? If you will ask a Vedanti like Raman Maharishi, he will say, because of the very presence of the non-doer. Because of the presence of the non-actor, a lot of beautiful action, harmonious action happens on the periphery. In the sage, does this action have an actor? No. Then how does the whole phenomena operate differently in the common man? In the common man as well, the center remains the same. The center obviously being non-moving, non-acting, is also unchangeable. So be it the sage or the common man, the center remains the same. How does the common man then differ from the sage? The common man differs from the sage not in terms of the absence of the real non-doing center, but in the terms of an artificial and fake presence of a non-existent doing center. The common man has something extra, something over and above what the sage has. The sage has one center that does nothing, but around that center, beautiful activity keeps happening on its own without anybody there to claim the credit for it. In the common man, the true center does exist, but it is accompanied by a plethora of false centers around it. And all these false centers are over-eager to present themselves as the doer, the actor, claim credit for what they are doing, supposedly, and therefore certify themselves to be the recipients of the action of doing. After all, how can you present yourself as eligible to consume the fruits of action if first of all you do not present yourself as the actor of the action? So the greed, the desire, the lust to consume the result necessitates that firstly one takes the credit for the action. I did it, so now I am entitled to reap the rewards, you see. I did it, so I'll consume the rewards. Hey, it's my right. It's my right. I did it. That's how the common man differs from the sage. In the sage, there exists nobody to do, because there exists nobody with the desire to consume the reward. But in the sage, a lot of action keeps happening. We'll come to that. What is now the quality of the action in the common man and the sage? In the sage, all action is by the virtue of the non-doing center. Remember, the non-doing center does not act, but by its presence, due to its blessings, by its very being, a lot of harmonious action, healthy action happens on its own. It does not intend to do. Action just happens. It has no plans because it has no expectation of any results. It does not want anything. There is no greed, no avarice. So it does not intend to do anything, yet a lot happens. That's how the sage lives. Wanting nothing actually, but doing a lot. If a person outside of the sage looks at the sage, he would say, my goodness, the fellow is such an intense actor. He keeps doing day in and day out. Sir, that's how it appears to you externally. Action is happening, but he's not doing it. And that's why the action is so intense and so beautiful, because he's not doing it. And that's why he's capable of such vigorous, almost superhumanly effort, because he's not doing it. That's why inconceivable and incredible deeds get done through him, because he's not doing them. That's the sage. A dynamite. With nothing but peace at its core. Getting it? Now come to the common man. He has over and above the true center a lot of false centers. Many of them. What are each of them? Or each of these centers up to? What do each of them want? They want their will to be done. So they are all fighting against each other. Always in conflict. Hence there is no harmony in the actions of the common man. He is not one. He is many. Think of a centipede. You know what a centipede is. What is centipede? That little thing with 100 small legs. Each of these legs decides to be an actor. And each of them wants to go in its own direction. Space offers an infinite number of directions, doesn't it? Each of them wants to go in some direction. That's your common man. Sometimes some of them strike alliances with each other. So 244 of them have come together to form one unit for a while. And then they can dominate these 244. And the entire centipede can be dragged towards one particular direction. But not before long. Another group of 347 forms a coalition. And now there is civil war. And now the entire being is dragged towards another direction. So there is no intensity, there is no harmony. There is no integrity. It is not possible for the ego to be one. The moment the ego starts coming close to being just one, it actually starts coming close to being not even one. For the ego to exist, there have to be various centers. Lots of centers. Now you understand why many teachers talked of the need for the crystallization of the ego before the ego can vanish. The ego is an amorphous powder. Little bits, little specks, little particles spread all over the place. And each of them is an independent center. Each of them is claiming to be an independent actor. And each of these dogs has his day. Sometime or the other, each of these centers actually gets to be at the center. It rules, even if for a small while. Even if for a small while, each of these centers actually manages to be at the center. Are you getting it? That's how the ego operates. In a powdered form. And then there is the crystallized ego, in which all of these come together and form a lump, a solidified crystallized lump. That is called oneness. That lump is very unstable. It cannot exist for long. Soon it will sublimate into nothingness. Nothing will remain. The fewer are the centers, the more harmonious and more intense is the action of the human being. And when there is no center at all, then the intensity and the harmony and the effectiveness and the zeal and the energy knows really no limits. If you find that you remain energyless or divided or incapable of coherent action, then know one thing about yourself. You are a powder. You are not crystallized. You are spread all over the place. A little bit here and a little bit there. Therefore, somebody can just blow you away. Anybody can do that. The greatest rock can be grinded down to a powdery form. And then what is the worth it holds? Even breeze can take it away. Are you getting it? Now, something important. In animals as well, the powdered ego does not exist. But they have a very strong alternate center. They have just one alternate center, but it is very strong. Very strong and not reducible or malleable at all. It is the center of Prakriti. So the entire life of the animal is spent around the Prakritic center. He remains totally oblivious to the real center. He knows nothing of it. That is the sense in which man is different. That is the sense in which man is blessed and cursed. The animal is now shackled to the Prakritic center. No opportunity exists for it to be redeemed. Man can move in either direction. Compared to the animal that has only one false center, man can either have no false center or a billion false centers. the animal will necessarily have one false center. The name of that false center is Prakriti. Man can either have no false center, or man can have innumerable false centers. Lao Tzu and Raman Maharishi here are talking about somebody who has no false center. Getting it? The question says, with age I find myself not only lacking in motivation, but also the capacity to work hard or indulge in intense activity. Can the capacity to work hard be developed in older age? You don't have to develop the capacity to work hard. You have to allow right and appropriate work to happen. The sage does not work hard. He allows the right work to happen through him. Maharishi says, intense, unceasing activity. Kindly don't draw conclusions. Kindly don't imagine that the Maharishi or Lao Tzu are talking about hard work. They are not talking in terms of the number of calories burnt. They are talking in terms of intensity. Intensity in work is a description of the extent to which your work is emanating from an intensely deep place within you. That is what is meant by intensity of work. I repeat, intensity of work does not refer to the number of calories burnt. Intensity of work refers to the depth of the point, the intensity of the point from where the work is arising. There might be a lot of intensity involved in just saying, yes, this is intense work. And there might be no intensity at all involved in a decade of soul-sapping hard work. There is no dearth of hard workers in the world. But do they have intensity? No. To be intense is to be working from the right center. It does not relate to anything else. It is quite possible that over an entire decade, all that you did was to say a no. That's the sum total of your entire work over a decade. What did you do all the decade? I said no. But then it could still be very, very intense and unceasing work. Therefore, it is not about your body or this or that. We are not talking the gym here. Nor are we talking about breaking stones or running a marathon. We are talking life. In life, it is not the number of calories that you have burnt that matters so much. Rather, it is the purpose for which you are burning those calories. And remember, the purpose of work is exactly the same as the center of the work. That where you are coming from will be exactly the same to that you are going to. So, neither Lao Tzu nor Raman Maharishi are encouraging the disciples to run around and show some hard work in the same sense as military people do or sports person do. They are talking about right work. And right work is very hard to do. Therefore, right work is the real hard work. And there is a lot of hard work that is not right work, but it is chosen simply because it is easy. Therefore, that hard work is not hard work, but cheaply easy work, compromised work. Never honor somebody purely on the basis of the number of hours of work they have put in, or the calories they have burnt, or the number of units they have manufactured, or the amounts they have earned. That's not the real or spiritual way of looking at things. If you really have to assess somebody's work, assess the work by its center. Where is the work coming from? Which direction is it going towards? We very well know that it is far easier, often far easier, to spend a decade running around than to spend an hour standing still. Now you know what hard work really is. I'm not favoring standing still over running around. I'm just trying to correct your notions, your perceptions. I'm not offering you an alternate perception. When I say that it is possible that you might have worked very diligently for 10 years and yet your hard work is not hard work but cheap work, by that I do not mean to encourage all the loafers and lazy people. Right work could mean anything. Sometimes it could mean standing still. Sometimes it could mean a lot of physical activity. Standing still does not matter. Abundance of physical activity does not matter. The only thing that matters is where the whole thing, be it stillness or movement, coming from. Getting it? You have talked about your physical capacity and age. Look at a river or look at a tree. Both have life cycles. Once the tree was tender and young, there was a particular way it responded to the wind. And now the tree is getting old. Now there is another way it responds to the wind. Both are beautiful. You don't have to emulate somebody else. You just have to avoid resisting the wind. Please get the difference. The older tree does not have to say that I must still be supple and flexible and dancing like the younger tree. It cannot do that. It's now physically incapable of doing that. It's grown old. There is a lot of bark. It's not as tender and as flexible anymore. If it tries to bend too much and dance around, probably it will break. But it can still love the wind and offer no resistance to it. That's the sage. It offers no resistance to the wind. In case of the tree, the wind is outside. In case of the sage, the wind is inside. The situation of the sage is one of non-resistance. Now, I do not resist the wind, but that does not mean that I will deliberately and forcibly dance to the wind. Let the wind do what it can. Who am I? I am nobody. I don't have a center. So I leave it to the wind. Let the wind decide what it wants to do with me. If I decide not to dance to the wind, that's doership. And if I decide to forcibly dance to the wind, that too is doership. So there was a time when I could dance a lot to the wind. I was not the doer, the wind was the doer. Now I cannot dance so much to the wind. Even now I am not the doer. The wind is the doer. One day the wind will probably uproot me. I am getting old. Even in that moment, I will not be the doer. The wind will be the doer. Such is the condition of the sage. When the body of the sage is young, the body of the sage dances to the inner center in one way. When the body is older, it dances in another way. The sage does not bother. The body is not his. Why must he bother? Why must he push the body to display an exaggerated dance? No. The inner center owns the body. Let the inner center manage its own domestic affairs. The body is the affair of the inner center. Who is the sage to intervene? The sage says, I am nobody. The body belongs to you. If you can make the body do this much, proceed. If you can make the body do this much, proceed. I would neither resist nor cooperate. My task is to just not resist. My task is to be absent. Who am I to interfere? You decide. Thy will be done. You know my body, you know my legs, you know my age. I am your servant. I have no personal will. I do not exist. I am not the actor. I am merely a servant. I have surrendered to that extent. You are the master. You know everything about me. If you still order me to run along to the market, I will do that. I'll honor your wish. If that's what you want, because you know best. I don't know. Looking at my age, looking at my knees, looking at my lungs, if you still feel that I need to run to the market, I'll honor your wish. I'll not ask a question. I'll not even express happiness. Are you getting it? That's the condition of the sage. He takes no personal responsibility for himself. He has given himself away to the real self. Thy will be done. You are the master. Unconditional obedience, total surrender. And therefore, intense action, not hard work necessarily. Intense action, not necessarily hard work. Is that clear?